Right, so the new Gaza Bloc of independent MPs are showing they are not wasted votes at all and are not going to be ineffective whatsoever by making sure they're going to be seen, going to be heard, and have wasted absolutely no time in doing so, having now issued a collective set of demands to the new Foreign Secretary David Lammy, outlining their demands regarding the Gaza conflict, which the Tories' conduct regarding was, well, supremely suspicious. Already having come under attack by decidedly bitter, defeated Labour MPs, independents and smaller parties in Parliament now, such as the Greens, they're not wasted votes. They do have clout, because they can build consensus in a cross-party manner, arguably in a more effective way, not carrying the baggage of larger parties, and can speak out and question authority as much as any other MP can. But as this move also shows, they're going to be amongst the most interesting groups in Parliament to watch, because they will highlight issues such as Gaza, when nobody else, none of the major parties actually want to talk about it. Well, they're not going to get a choice in the matter.
I'm obviously disappointed to have lost my constituency in pretty brutal circumstances.
Tell me about it.
I've never known a campaign of such vitriol, such bullying, such intimidation. I've never seen a Member of Parliament, Shocker Adam Patel, get elected on the basis of a foul and obnoxious lie that I was responsible for genocide, that I had the blood of Gazan children on my hands. This was his campaign. I had his supporters bullying and intimidating myself and my key supporters in the streets, and he refuses to condemn it. He's actually gone to ground and he's refusing to answer any questions on this. It's very disrespectful to the people of Leicester South that he's disappeared. But look, there should be no place for bullying and intimidation in politics. Some people have said, oh, don't speak out, it looks like sour grapes. I'm a northern lad. I'm from a different bit of Greater Manchester than you, but we were taught to stand up to bullies, and that's what I'll always do.
Right, so to kick off with, that was Jonathan Ashworth there, talking about the loss of his Leicester South seat, despite him holding a 22,000 vote majority there with such good grace, as I'm sure you can tell, firmly blaming the campaign of local optician Shocker Adam for him losing. The entitlement, therefore, this guy is frankly off the charts, isn't it? What exactly do you think the people of Leicester South actually owe you, Ashworth? You're a Starmer loyalist right up to the point of attacking Bengali migrants, most of whom will have been Muslim, in a constituency that is one-third Muslim itself. Didn't vote for a ceasefire until Starmer said it was okay to vote for one, and that being his version of one, his promise of one, worth as little as that is, frankly, with all the shenanigans of the previous vote that the SNP had brought last November, still fresh in many people's minds for whom the issue of Gaza remains an important one. And for some reason you're angry, you're shocked, and you're appalled, not at your own conduct, as vile as that had been, as offensive to so many of your constituents as that clearly was, that you lost your seat to a guy now part of what is being referred to as the Gaza Bloc of MPs. 5 independents for whom the issue of Gaza will not be allowed to be ignored or forgotten, no matter how big Keir Starmer's majority might be. That seat didn't belong to you. You had no entitlement to it, so knock off the theatrics, lose with some dignity and crack on with your new job taking over at the top of the Starmeroid Labour Together think tank, after the previous boss, naturally offered a parliamentary candidacy by Starmer, being his sort, Josh Simons, got elected MP for Makersfield. You fell on your feet, sunshine. Get over yourself. But to shock out Adam himself, not to mention those other 4 Gaza Bloc MPs, Jeremy Corbyn, Iqbal Mohammed, Adnan Hussein and Ayub Khan, they are not sitting idly on the opposition benches. They are not pointless MPs, having been voted in with no power whatsoever, as the likes of Ashworth and fellow bad loser also doing the media rounds right now a lot, Thangam Debonair, imply they are, and in Debonair's case, having lost to Carla Denyer, the Green Party, because they can raise issues now not being raised by the former MP that are important to their constituents. And for as much as these and others jeer smaller parties, independent MPs, or they're powerless, they miss the primary role of said MPs in which case, and that is to represent their constituents and not just follow party lines in Parliament. In that regard, you couldn't vote for better than an independent or a Green, since neither operate a party whipping system for one thing, so they will always be better local MPs than anyone else because they're free to do exactly as mandated by the very people who voted them in. In no small part were these 5 independent MPs, though, elected because all of them had Palestine as a significant part of their campaigns, when neither major party, Tories or Labour, would do so. And their actions told people that far more loudly than any campaigning during the election did, and as such, they've come together as this pro-Palestine grouping, this Gaza Bloc as they've become known as, and have now issued a set of demands to Labour's Foreign Secretary David Lammy, outlining their expectations for this Labour government in regards to the ongoing conflict and genocide happening at Israel's hands in Gaza. Dear Foreign Secretary, we, the undersigned, have been elected by our respective constituents, in part, to represent their concerns regarding the ongoing catastrophic situation in Gaza, which has been described by the International Court of Justice as a plausible genocide. There is no doubt that you will be aware that the situation on the ground in Gaza worsens moment by moment. The urgency for action cannot be overstated. As of the 9th of July, a group of independent UN experts have declared that famine is now spread throughout the Gaza Strip, with the recent deaths of more Palestinian children due to hunger and malnutrition solidifying the urgency of the matter. Gaza's Ministry of Health holds the death toll since October 7th at 38,000. However, a study published in the journal The Lancet estimates that even a conservative measure of the death toll in Gaza could exceed 186,000. The study points out that the official death toll does not take into account the thousands of people buried under the rubble, nor the indirect deaths caused by the destruction of health facilities, food distribution systems, and the breakdown of other public infrastructure. In addition, the study finds that disease and starvation will lead to many more deaths in the long term. Given the above highlighted factors, and in light of the provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice, we write to remind you of your government's obligations under international law. We call upon you to undertake the following actions as a matter of urgency. 1. Immediately suspend all provision of weapons and weapon systems to the government of Israel. 2. Immediately restore and increase UK funding to UNRWA and take all necessary steps to ensure the safe access and delivery of essential supplies and medical aid to the civilian population of Gaza. 3. Issue a public statement supporting the implementation of measures as advised by the International Court of Justice. 4. Drop any legal challenge over the ICC's right to seek an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu for war crimes. 5. Issue a public statement to announce the cessation of the challenge to the International Criminal Court concerning the arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu. 6. Utilise the United Kingdom's position as a permanent member state on the United Nations Security Council to advocate for an immediate and sustainable ceasefire. 7. Facilitate and engage in exhausting all diplomatic efforts to secure the prompt release of all hostages. 8. Advocate for the deployment of a United Nations peacekeeping force to Gaza upon reaching a ceasefire agreement. 9. Impose sanctions on individuals and entities inciting genocide against Palestinians. 10. Suspend the 2030 roadmap for UK-Israel bilateral relations and negotiate towards an expanded trade agreement and consider the possibility of imposing sanctions. 11. Recognise the State of Palestine with immediate effect. We urge you to implement these actions as crucial steps towards the alleviation of a catastrophic situation in Gaza and fulfil the obligation of the United Kingdom under international law. If you wanted an idea of the sort of action we'd have seen under a Corbyn government, for example, then, under a proper left-wing government that's not under the thrall of the Israel lobby as Starmer's Labour and the Tories are, then this is it. And fundamentally, this is all stuff we, the UK, are signatories of to the UN Charter, the ICC and ICJ jurisdictions, and as UN Security Council permanent members, the UK as a minimum is required by law to meet, and by virtue of its powerful international position campaign and vote for as well. It is political will that has not seen this done already, and likely won't be seen under Labour either, and I can back that comment up, by the way. But equally, this is the power small groups of MPs can bring to bear in Parliament. This is an issue they will keep raising for as long as it takes, an issue that if Labour had been taken seriously already, they wouldn't lose seats and support over. But the need to raise these points and raise them with Starmer's government to demand they act are legitimate. Take restoring funding to UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, for example. Most countries who withdrew funding to this organisation have restored it after Israel's lies about evidence UNRWA were working with Hamas, or some of their workers were. That all failed to materialise, of course, didn't it? Well, the UK has still not restored funding. Even Germany has restored funding now, and they were really, really vehemently on the side of Israel with regards to this UNRWA story. But the UK has still not restored funding. And Labour called for this funding to be restored actually back in April. Yet a week into the job, a week into them running the country, they still haven't done this themselves. So why not? What's the hold up? UNRWA are pretty much all that make life sustainable in Gaza, but Israel hate them because of it. So is that why Labour won't do it or haven't done it with immediate effect having come to power? Are they just a bunch of hypocrites on this? Then there's the legal challenge the Tories made to try and protect Netanyahu from an arrest warrant, which has now delayed the ICC reaching a decision on this by at least another month. Why have Labour not just abandoned this shameless attempt to protect a genocidal maniac? Why have weapons sales not been suspended yet? Surely you've looked at that legal advice from the Tories were hiding behind, haven't you? You were demanding they show you what it was. So what gives there? All of these and more are ample reason to question Labour's desire to work towards a peaceful resolution, and more that the Tories were. And it is right that MPs should hold them to account for this, but where few would do so when the Tories ran the country, now there is a block of MPs elected to Parliament who are going to do exactly this and keep on doing that, and they aren't wasting time getting on with it. And it's great to see. Starmer must have his life made as difficult as possible over this to see a shift. Meanwhile, I covered more detail of the findings of that Lancet article that was mentioned in that Gaza Bloc notice, why the Gaza Ministry of Health's figures are likely underestimating the true death toll. Get more on that story, horrifying story, in this video recommendation here, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next video. Cheers, folks.